What you do, Kanekis? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. So this is going to be a pretty important series. We're going to be looking at what the hell happened in 1971, specifically looking at the impact of fiat currencies on society. It's going to be a three-part series. We'll look at what fiat currencies are, and in this video, we'll look at how fiat currencies affect income growth. In future videos, we'll look at how fiat currencies affect male and female dynamics. It's going to be a very interesting one. Look forward to it. In part 3, we'll look at how fiat currencies affect life trajectory. And then we'll tie it all up and we'll talk about how we can hopefully fix this. So before I start, all charts will be were gotten from WTF happened in 1971.com. It's going to be a full video just full of charts, so those of you who are statisticians, look forward to it. I certainly am. But before we get into it, please hit the like button, subscribe as well if you're new and you'd like to catch the future videos of the series. Please also share the video out because I think it's going to be very important that a lot of people know this. All right, so let's kick it off. What are fiat currencies? Well, to understand this, we have to go back to 1971, when President Richard Nixon ended the gold standard. Specifically, the date was 15th August 1971. Before this day, countries could basically exchange their dollars for gold. That was pretty much what the gold standard was. It was that phrase, as good as gold. That's what the dollar was. However, Nixon temporarily ended that exchange, which meant that the dollar was now unbacked. It now became fiat. The issue with the dollar becoming fiat is all currencies were tied to the dollar through the foreign exchange markets. So that meant that all currencies around the world at that same time also became fiat currencies. Now, what does fiat mean? The word comes from Latin. It means let it be done. And the fiat currency means, reading this from Google, a government issued currency that is not backed by a physical commodity such as gold and silver. Instead, its value is based on the public's trust in the government that issues it. Let me ask you guys right now, how much do you trust your government? How much are you trusting Keir Starmer? Those of you in the UK, how much are you trusting Donald Trump or Kamala Harris with your future income? How much are you guys trusting them? Also, considering how they handled the pandemic, I've told you guys about how they printed the hell out of the dollar during the pandemic, and that's why we're having inflation now. So how much are you trusting them? And looking at this chart now, you can see how all the major currencies have depreciated against gold. You can see the dollar has fallen. The mark, the one that's in red, that's the German currency back, I think, before World War II. Oh man, I'm currently reading a book. Sorry, I'm digressing a bit, but I'm currently reading a book called When Money Dies. I'll talk about it in the future. But yo, that is hyperinflation to the max. And it might be coming to the dollar. So yeah, you can see the euro as well, the yen, the pound sterling, all of them have puked. Their value has puked against gold. Gold has remained 100% because an ounce of gold is an ounce of gold. You know, it doesn't deteriorate basically, but fiat currencies do. And I talked a bit about how they inflated money. They inflated the M2 money supply. Those of you who've seen previous videos are familiar with this chart. And if you look at 1971 right here, where the red arrow is pointing, that's where the dollar standard ended, and you can see it just gets steeper. They're printing more and more over time. And around 1995, it explodes. But wait, if you think that was bad, there was the pandemic that we all experienced right here in 2020. Boom! Straight up in a very short amount of time. And I think we printed more money in that period than we had at any other period in history. So that's why we're feeling the pinch of inflation right now. And of course, inflated money supply means higher prices. Higher prices is not inflation, it is a symptom. And now that the fiat currencies were tied to nothing, it wasn't backed by gold, governments and banks could pretty much print as much money as they wished. Because, I mean, they didn't have to, there wasn't a claim on the dollar for gold. So it was like, oh, well, if the public, as long as the public isn't aware of this, as long as they're not aware of what we're doing, we can keep printing and they're going to think it's worth something. The dollar, the paper money, the digits in your account are worth nothing. If there is anything you take from this video, let it be that it is worth nothing but your trust. Right, let's get into the meat and bones of this one. How do fiat currencies affect income growth? Well, you can see those raging inflation. The Fed was launched back in 1913. That's the US central bank. They're in charge of interest rates. Of course, there are central banks around the world, such as the ECB, European Central Bank, the BOE, Bank of England, Bank of Japan, BOJ, and the People's Bank of China, PBOC. Of course, all the other countries have their own central banks. And you can see inflation was up about 3%, well, 300%, 3x, in 1971. And that was when it was unshackled by gold. And then boom! All the way up to about 2,326% unshackled. They could print to infinity. It's just a funny chart to look at because it's like, what are they doing? What the hell are they doing? Right. So workers are not fairly compensated for work. This chart is basically showing productivity against compensation. Productivity is the amount, basically a measure of output over input, how much yield you're getting for the different costs for the company. So, for example, how many apples a farmer can harvest compared to the input costs, like, I don't know, fertilizer and all that mumbo jumbo. So basically, productivity is up. Productivity is up by a lot. However, after 1971, compensation stagnates. It just stagnates. Like, workers are not being paid fairly. Their pay has not kept up with their productivity. It's really sad because that's happening at the same time as inflation is happening. So nominally, you've seen increases in pay. However, the real pay, when it's measured and is adjusted for inflation, has stayed the same, which is why people feel like they're getting poorer. And of course, more productivity should mean lower prices because you're getting more of something, so the supply is increasing. However, that's not the case because they're inflating the money supply, so the money is worth less. You need more of it to get the same good. You need to pay higher prices to get the same thing like you did before in the past. This is the second part of the workers not being compensated fairly for work. So there's something called the gross domestic product. It measures how well an economy is doing, how productive it is. And the formula is as follows. It is consumption plus business investment plus government spending. I'll come back to that point. Plus government spending plus net exports. Now, government spending. This is the issue I have with this formula, because you can cook the books. The governments can cook the books by spending more. Now, those of you who might be libertarians will know that government spending, there's an issue with government spending because these governments tend to be quite wasteful. You see them deficit spending, so they're spending more than they're bringing in terms of tax revenues, and they spend on things such as wars. They hire more government employees to regulate businesses, and the payroll of these employees counts towards government spending. They aren't really producing anything. They are not producing anything. However, it counts towards the productivity of the country's economy. So we've seen the real GDP per capita increase. All the GDP values are increasing. However, the average real wage stagnant, and the real median weekly earnings have almost dropped. Look, yeah, it's actually dropped since 1971. Guys, look, don't trust what you're hearing on the news about the economy being great. It is not great. everyone's really struggling. Everyone's being hit by this. Even the highest earners, they're being hit by this. But I'll come on to that in a second. Increased migration also causes a strain on public spending, which is government spending. So it causes a strain on things like healthcare, social security payments, and this strain causes governments to print more money, thus inflating the GDP per capita. Uh, it's such a mess. It's such a mess. It's such a mess. Right. So I was talking about how it affects everyone. However, the top 1%, oh, they're sitting pretty. They're sitting very pretty. As you can see, the bottom 90% of earners, our wages have stagnated. It is pretty much flat to probably even on the lowest side. That's the blue line. However, the top 1% have seen their income grow exponentially. This is because the rich have financial assets such as ISAs, stocks, 401ks. Those 401k is basically like a pension plan, and also precious metals investments, so gold and silver. So these assets tend to go up in price because they're more or less limited in supply. If anything is scarce, the denominator being priced in like a dollar or the pound inflating means that the limited supply, there's more money chasing the same supply of goods, so the price increases for that good. However, the bottom 90% don't tend to have these assets. So as inflation is eating away at their income, as it's eating away at their savings, their income and savings tend to either reduce in value or stay flat. So they're the ones being hit the hardest. And they're losing purchasing power. It's a really sinister thing, inflation. It really is. You've also got the issue of lower bond yields. Lower bond yields are basically interest rates. So if you park your money in a bank deposit, that's paying you maybe 2%, maybe 2% if you're lucky sometimes. I hear Bank of America is paying what, 0.6% annually, 0.6%. But yeah, so the way bond yields work, it's like a seesaw. Shout out to Lynette Zhang for this explanation. It's like a seesaw. So as bond yields go up, the price decreases. So what governments do is they buy more so that the yield comes down. And to buy more, they print money. That's how money is created. They basically do it by buying bonds. And buying bonds keeps the interest rates low. And as you can see, since 1971, there was a bit of a spike, but it's gone down massively, pretty much near zero. And this has affected the personal savings rates because people are seeing, well, 0% interest rates on their money, 0% savings rates on their money. So what's the point of saving? They might as well spend it, right? So the higher inflation caused by that money supply, by that inflated money supply, eats away at people's personal savings. So they're like, well, what's the point of saving if it's going to lose value? I might as well just spend it all. So people don't have enough for a rainy day, for a catastrophe. They've got nothing. They've got nothing. And there was a phrase I heard, I think it was yesterday or so, where the person said, if people save, the government is losing money. And I really like that. Your savings is a loss for the government because they're getting less in tax revenues from purchases, which is a brilliant way to put it. So the lower interest rates basically disincentivize saving. So yeah, people just try to max out credit cards. They try to max out. So they try to deplete their bank accounts as much as possible. Might as well just get the new thing while your money is still worth something, right? They don't look to get financial assets, which is really sad. It's really sad. But they don't teach you these things in school. They really don't. But yeah, that's the end of that first part. The second part, the second part is going to be tasty. It is not. It shouldn't be controversial because I mean these are all facts. The facts don't care about your feelings really. So do look forward to part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed part 1. It was a bit meaty in terms of economics terms, but I hope you managed to get some value out of it. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe as well if you're new and you haven't already. Also share this video out with people you believe will find value in it. You can send a thank you through a tip. It will be very much appreciated. I'll see you guys in part 2. Peace.